Is there no way out? Yes, there is. That's why I don't agree with Heisenberg or with Newman. There is a way out, and there always has been. There exists a way, the means to create energy in this world that is clean, it's safe, and it is free. It doesn't cost very little indeed. It costs very little indeed, and it's eternal. It's infinite. So why are we using it? That's the question. Why are we using these things? Why are we using this oil? Why do we have power stations? We have this national grid of these wires that cover the whole landscape. You know, these pylons everywhere, you know, and of course that's where a lot of the money comes from, simply this huge circuit that covers the country is charged by these generators, which a lot has lost to resistance because of the wires. There's electrical resistance in the wires. You know, why? I'll come on to that in a minute. Why we're still stuck with this, you know, 19th century technology in the 21st century. As I said, free energy, free, clean, safe, infinite energy. It is available. It's surprisingly simple to use. There's no Large Hadron Collider required. There's some very, very simple engineering can actually provide it, and it's even present in nature. In fact, it's some weather systems, some kinds of weather you see it in action, and it's even some animals and plants have evolved to use it. And there's theories that our own bodies use free energy, zero-point energy in some form. No, but the scientists call this over-unity, which they say is impossible. It's a scientific sort of like oxymoron because of something called the law of the conservation of energy. Because as I said at the beginning of this speech, scientists believe, I could ask Stephen Hawking or Brian Cox or any of these scientists, they all believe that the amount of energy in the universe is fixed, it's finite. It was all created in the Big Bang, and it's basically just spreading out now. It's called entropy. It just spreads out and gradually cools, and all the energy slowly disperses. And you can't get any more than that. What was in the Big Bang is all you can get, and there's no more. And eventually the universe will just basically fizzle out. It will become freezing cold, and there'll be nothing left. That's what they say will happen. You know, a bit grim, that, isn't it? I don't like that. I like a happy ending personally. Of course, real life is not a movie, but in this case, we may get what we want. We may. Like I said, they don't like that. They don't like it when someone comes and says that's not true, because the law of the conservation of energy is a very old one. It goes back before Einstein and before any of these people, and so that there's a lot of hostility from scientists. I mean, they come out with all kinds of. They say they've studied it and it doesn't work. It's not true. Others disagree. I mean, you've got to look for the evidence yourself and find out and see which one you think is right. I think that those who believe in free energy are right, because I've studied it. If you study it too, you may disagree with me, or you may agree with me. But the evidence is there. It's on the internet. You can find it all there. There's lots of videos, lots of articles, all about free energy. And it's the strange thing is, right? You might be saying to me now, you might be thinking, so Ben, I'm about to announce it's just been discovered, right? It's just suddenly come out, suddenly been revealed. No. It's been around. It was discovered a long time ago. I mean, it was actually discovered before the age of oil. The earliest record of scientists observing free energy effects is dated back to the 19th century. So this is when coal was the primary fuel source. We weren't even using oil much then. And we're told it doesn't work, and we have to use oil now. It really is, I mean, there's other things like anti-gravity. Now, gravity is, of course, the force which holds everything us down to the Earth. The Earth exerts a gravitational field, which is why we have this force pulling us down, and we press on the ground. Our weight is the force we push down in a gravitational field. Now, anti-gravity is something that is the realm of science fiction. A lot of science fiction writers talk about anti-gravity. It's a method by which a physical object can be made immune to a gravitational field. In other words, you could have a physical object like that chair, and you could do something to it which will mean the gravity will not affect it, and it will be able to move through a gravitational field without the gravity affecting it, which would mean effectively it will become weightless. It would exert no weight on the ground, and you could pick it up and you could like throw it around like they do on spaceships. That's what it means. In science fiction, there are things like anti-gravity vehicles where people have created ways of turning them into vehicles which they can just fly around the place. You know, with free energy, you could basically have something like that which will run for virtually no money, for no cost at all. You know, you could, you know, it's really quite amazing when you think about it. I mean, there's there's so many examples I could give you about anti-gravity research as well, but there's one I've got to mention, right, because I think future generations of school children are going to be smirking and giggling over this one, right, in their science classes in school, because there's a man in 1920 called George Pigott who found a way to levitate his balls. See, starting already, yeah, your great-grandchildren will be laughing about that as well. What happened when, you know, they don't teach it in science class at the moment, right, but they will do one day. They will do one day. What he did was, by using an electrical power, because anti-gravity is actually electricity used in a certain way, can actually interference patterns in a certain way, can actually create an anti-gravity effect. He found a way to make some steel balls lift up into the air. Basically, using this electrical effect, he basically neutralised the effect of gravity on those balls. So they could basically lift into the air. You reduce their weight. And then there's experiments done to back this up. There's a YouTube video called, it's not officially on YouTube, but there's loads of copies of it. It's just come out called Sirius. Has anyone seen Sirius?
Yeah.
You saw that? Yeah. It's where you actually see them testing a spinning disc, which works similarly. It's a similar method to George Pigott's balls. They spin it round, and basically they can't get it to levitate yet, but it's lost a lot of its weight just by spinning it around, putting an electric current through it. It actually weighs less. That's impossible. That should be impossible, but they managed to do it. Now, the most famous and successful of these inventors is Nikola Tesla. You've heard of Nikola Tesla, anyone? Yeah, I think he's a very, very well-known name. I mean, he's mainstream. He invented the alternating current, which is what we use in our electrical system today, which makes these lights run. He knew a lot about magnetism as well, and the unit for magnetic power is named after him, the Tesla. And you often have it shortened to T for some reason, which is strange because Tesla's not a long word. But when they delivered a magnetic resonance imager to my hospital once, right? And these are scanning machines. I don't know if you've ever had an MRI scan anywhere here, but so they put you inside this machine and it takes pictures of you like an X-ray, but it's more detailed than an X-ray. And it has one of the most powerful magnets in the world. The new one, they said, it's a 3T magnet. And I said, well, what does T stand for? I said, don't know, we just call it T. And what it's called is Tesla. And a little fridge magnet is just a few micro Teslas, but this was a 3T magnet. 4T is 4 Tesla magnet is the most powerful magnet in the world. So I'm surprised that the radiographer didn't know that actually, because they do study, they should know what T stands for. There's other examples I could mention, but Tesla's the main one. He's the one who discovered that he was working in the 19th century to develop the electrical system we have alongside other people like Thomas Edison, who's famous for inventing the light bulb. Tesla had strange ideas. Edison sort of invented the kind of, a lot of people in those days were concentrating on the kind of generators we have today in power stations today. So basically power stations in essence have not changed much for over 100 years. Tesla discovered that, in fact, if you want electricity, there's ways of just getting it. You can just get it out of the Earth's own electrical field. The Earth itself has a massive electrical field around it, which is enormously powerful. There's enough electricity to run everything we have 100 times over. And Tesla realised that he found a way to simply tap that. Found a way to, instead of generating electricity, he just found a way to get the electricity out of the Earth's electrical body. But I think he knew a lot. He was a genius. I mean, I think he worked out that the electrical field of the Earth itself is not generated in the Earth. It's actually a manifestation of another kind of energy, which is called zero-point energy, which is the actual energy of the universe itself. But of course, the powers that be in the Industrial Revolution didn't want that. You can't stick a meter on it. And it would, you know, and for reasons I'll come to in a minute, there's other reasons why they don't, you know, there's people in authority ruling over us who don't want us to know about this. So we're all thought criminals in this room. I'm a thought criminal for saying it, you are for listening to me. Take heart from that. So Tesla was, unfortunately, he died, a poor man, he died at the age of 80 in 1941 in his hotel room. There was no money at all. When he died, the hotel staff locked the door and called the FBI. And before the undertakers could even take the body away, the FBI went in there and they took every paper he had and they classified it, along with a lot of other things he'd written over the years. And as far as we know, those papers still have not been published. They're still classified under the National Security Act in the United States. Some of them for over 100 years. And it's very, very odd. There's other people like Brewster Palmer, John Keeley, Thomas Townsend Brown, and of course today, the most famous example is John Hutchison. Have you heard of John Hutchison? Yeah, he's Dr. Judy Wood has talked a lot about him because she's her own research has it ties in with 9/11, which I'll come to as well in a little while. There's a guy called Edward Leedskalnin, who's this guy in America who he built this amazing monument. He was a bit of a sort of like recluse, kind of eccentric hermit type character, and he lived on his own a lot. And he built a massive monument called Coral Castle, and it literally was a castle made out of coral stones and huge blocks of stone which were just fitted together. And you can visit it today. It's like a tourist attraction, and you can find it and you can go in there and visit it if you want to get over there and see it. It's a really amazing thing. Huge carvings, huge, massive monoliths and things like that. Now, the funny thing is, to build something like that, you need a lot of guys working on it. You need architects, you need engineers, you need a crane, and you need a bulldozer, and you need things like that. Leedskalnin didn't have any of that. He did it on his own. How? Well, there's a clue, because when he died, they went through his things, and they found several books about Egypt and ancient Egypt and the pyramids. Now, this takes us back to what I was saying before. Were the pyramids really built by manpower, as Heinberg says? Or did people a long time ago know a lot more than we do now? Did they know a lot of the same things now that our own government are trying to keep from us? That's the question. It's a big subject, too big to get into tonight. There's also a guy called Victor Schauberger, who's a very interesting character. Now, I said it before, you know, that free energy is more common and more simple than you think. And it exists in nature, and it exists in the world around us, in weather, in nature, in animals, plants. Also, I mean, it exists in our own lives. I mean, if you're in a house with bad plumbing and you turn on a tap or flush a toilet, you get an almost growling sound coming out of the ground. You normally say, "I'll call the damn plumber, it's making that noise again." You know, now sometimes, not always, but sometimes that's free energy. It's called the water hammer effect. But sometimes there's actually a free energy reaction in that. And Schauberger is the guy who really discovered this, because he was a forester. He wasn't a scientist. He lived in Austria. And in the 1920s, he was working looking after the trees in a forest. And he used to watch fish in the river. And I've done this. So you go to Bybury in Warwickshire, you can see him doing the same. Fish seem to be able to swim in a fast-moving river without actually moving their fins. You can sometimes see them. They sometimes hold position relative to the banks of the river, and you can see them just sitting still in great groups, and schools of fish, you know, and they're not moving their fins much. They're just sitting there. And Schauberger thought, how do they do that? The truth is, they use their gills. The water comes in through their gills, which they use to breathe, and comes out the side of their heads. But there's actually a free energy effect there. He actually discovered that the fish were using a free energy effect, and they do. So you can go see it in any river if you can find a fast-moving stream. It is the right temperature, because he said it needs to be the right temperature. He was, when Hitler came to power, unfortunately Schauberger was basically forced to work for the Nazis against his will, and he produced some very, very interesting engineering things. I mean, there's a lot of rumours going around. If you listen to Joseph Farrell and people like that talking about the Nazi flying saucers, and the fact that the Nazis were developing this free energy an awful lot during the Second World War, and at the end of the war, after their defeat, the Russians and the Americans came in and they took it. and it was they carried on developing it, and they have been doing it ever since. Now, cold fusion. Did anyone hear about the cold fusion scandal? It was quite a long time ago now, but it's still, you hear about it now and again. What happened was, in 1989, two scientists called Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann announced to the world they had found a way to make nuclear fusion, which is a form of this free energy. It's not technically free energy, but it's near enough, for practical purposes, free energy. They did it very, very simple way, like I say, no large hadron collider. It was schoolboy science, electrolysis, sort of things you used to fiddle with wires and pots of water when you were a kid at school, you know, stick wires in them. This is what they were doing. They were basically doing this with a test tube of deuterium, which is it's a very, very common element. It's in water. It's in abundant supplies in natural water. And they were making this. They were creating a massive amount of heat from it. And this was all over the world. It was on the news. And basically, the elite, the people keeping the secret, went, oh, well, there's a young lady present. I won't say the word, but they basically panicked. They thought, what are we going to do? And so they basically they managed to find a way to put the lid on it. The truth of the matter is, it's very interesting that it's, you know, because there was a big TV show made about it by BBC Horizon, that wonderful programme that loves pouring cold water and anything like this. And they said, cold fusion doesn't work. We proved it because there are no neutron emissions from the system. Now, neutron emissions are what you get when there's fusion, you know. And the thing about it was, that's not the point. It may well not have been fusion. It's what's called, they're calling it now the anomalous heat effect. But it doesn't matter. For practical purposes, it's important to realise it doesn't matter what is causing the heat. The fact is the heat has been generated, and if that happens, you can rig it up to a heat exchanger. You can make it boiler that can produce steam, which can run through a turbine, which can spin a turbine, spin a dynamo, and you have power. You can work out the details later. See, so this is a complete, it was an awful programme. It's called BBC Horizon, An Experiment to Save the World. What a wonderful title. Well, you watch it and you'll see that it's actually a load of crap, I think. But it's worth watching, just to arm yourselves against the kind of disinformation that the government used to try and shut us down and keep the lid on this secret. Because, you know, you've got to think for a moment what it means, right? Because, like I said, this has been around a long time. Cold fusion, you know, the cold fusion thing actually dates back to 1926. Pons and Fleischmann just rediscovered it. As I said, there was George Pigott and his levitating balls. There was Nikola Tesla. There was people even before that. Just if this technology had been freely available, the world we see today would be unrecognisable compared to what we see it is today. It would be so different. It's hard to imagine how different it is. You've got to sit back and think for a moment and to realise the implications. It basically means you could buy a box which you could fit into a cupboard in your home for £80 that would produce free, clean, safe energy forever. And it would have no moving parts. It would be very low maintenance. You wouldn't need to call the electrician in to fiddle with it every few minutes. You wouldn't need to get the spark plugs changed or anything like that. It would basically run forever. No more electricity bills at all. No more old people freezing to death in the winter, it still happens. It happened last winter. We've got some old folk who died. This is what moved Gary McKinnon, actually, the famous hacker who hacked into the Pentagon computers in America, who's now thankfully being acquitted. Well, he's not going to be prosecuted. His prosecution's been quashed. But he was facing a lifetime in an American jail for what he did. The reason he did what he did is he hacked into the computers because he understood what we're talking about today, and he was so upset by seeing these old people freezing to death in houses in a country which is supposedly a rich country that he was upset by it. That's why he did it. That would never happen again. Also, it would end. There wouldn't be poverty because poverty comes from this failure. This failure of society comes from this fact that we're told we have limited resources and energy. So the energy isn't shared out, all the resources of the world are shared out so unevenly because we're told there aren't enough to go around. I mean, it would end poverty in this country because we all have enough energy we want. It would end poverty around the world as well. You wouldn't get these famines that you get today. Because if you want to set, a lot of these famines are caused by wars and droughts and things like that. When in fact, if you had free energy, you could actually use seawater. You could put a farm anywhere you want and use seawater on it. Of course, you can't use seawater on farm. You can't irrigate farmland with seawater. You need rain, you need rivers, but you can desalinate water. You can turn seawater into fresh water. It's easily done, and of course it takes energy, and of course you can't do it because there's not enough energy, so you can't desalinate enough seawater to feed everyone. But if you had free energy, you could desalinate seawater for no money, and you could move it with anti-gravity or with free energy anywhere you wanted. You could pump it anywhere you wanted. You could set up a farm in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and you could get all the water you want from the sea. Virtually infinite supply, no cost or very little cost at all. So you wouldn't get these people starving to death, which means there'd be plenty of available farmland for everyone. And of course, because it's clean, you wouldn't get all this pollution, you wouldn't get these oil spills, you wouldn't get this smog, which a lot of cities suffer from car exhausts, from power stations, from other things like that. And I mean, there's a big issue in this country at the moment with immigration. Now, I mean, a lot of people have different views about this. I mean, I live with 3 blokes from the Sudan, and they're great guys. I really get on well with them. They're not part of a conspiracy to introduce Sharia law into Parliament. They're not, and they're not after your daughters. No, they're just ordinary guys who are here to try and earn a living because they can earn a good living here. Now, whatever you think about that, whether you want them here or not, if you want immigration to stop, then the solution that's been proposed to us by the official sources is not the right one, because what they're saying is you need to have laws to stop them. You need to bring in tighter border controls, things like that. And I was talking with some people earlier about things like the fact that everyone needs to be on a database now. You need to have ID for everything now. Someone tried to take my daughter's fingerprints at the school, and if you ask these people why do they do this, they'll very much tell you we need to know who everyone is because we need to make sure you're not an illegal immigrant. But you must realise, with free energy, there wouldn't be immigration. I mean, these guys I live with, they're great guys, but I mean, and we got on well, but they come from a country today which is a dust bowl. Sudan is a dust bowl. It's been hit by multiple wars. A lot of the farmland is destroyed by drought. A lot of it's got landmines on it, so it can't be used. People are in a terrible state there. But I did a little back-of-the-envelope calculation, and I worked out that just 10 Stanley Meyer cells, this is a free energy device, just 10 of those in Sudan would transform that country into a land flowing with milk and honey. Just 10. And you could build hundreds if you want. That country could feed all of Africa on its own. Never mind itself. And when that happens, my housemates, well, they didn't come here for the weather. They'll be on the first plane home. They will be. So, I'm going to draw another. Like I said, I don't agree with Heinberg. I'm going to draw a different graph now, which is different to this one. This is Heinberg's very pessimistic graph, which I don't think is right. So I'm going to redraw it. Now, Heinberg's graph goes like this, as we've just seen. It goes along like that, and then you get this big spike of population of the Industrial Revolution. Energy consumption matches it. environmental destruction matches it. And he just sees these going up, and I mean, I agree with him up to that point, because I think we have had manipulated, and because this information has been kept from us, Heinberg's views appear to be right. The thing is though, imagine at this point, we get free energy invented, right? Because at the moment we've got depleting resources, alright? Imagine at that point free energy is classified, declassified. Because we can't go back to the beginning, we can't go back to the beginning and start again, we've got to deal with it now. At this point, something very, very different will happen to what happened on the other graph. Population will probably stabilise eventually, it'll probably keep going up for a while and it will stabilise at a high level. Now, obviously, there's a limit to how many people the Earth can hold, no matter what you do. But I mean, you hear a lot of talk about overpopulation nowadays. It's a load of rubbish, all right? It just appears that way because we don't have this energy source, and we've been forced to manipulate it into living this environmentally destructive life. At that point, environmental destruction will go down here to almost nothing. At the same time, resources, instead of energy matching population, resources will go up. Because with free energy, you've got enough resources for everybody. And the energy line, where will that go? Infinity. Energy is there's enough energy there to last you, to do whatever you want with. Alright, that's the future, and that is what I think our future is, and not what Heinberg says it is. Alright, now it's 25 past. I've got a bit more to do on energy, but is now a good time to take a break? Because I've got to come on to another subject to do with energy after we've had a break.
Can I just say a couple of things, right? Because there's some biscuits. Woo!